Hey, have you ever wondered about Arcana Heart lore? It may seem like an off question, but currently the only game on modern console is Arcana Heart 3. By that I mean Arcana Heart 3 is still only on the PlayStation for PS3, while Xbox Live has Arcana Heart 3 and Love Max, same with Steam. So a large portion of the story in 3 is lost due to Arc System / Marvelous not putting the rest of the series on modern consoles. I figured if no one else will do it, I'll cover the story for the series as best as I can. Now, I should note a few things. First off, terms. I will be using terms selectively. I know that some games use different terms depending on the game. Well, depending on who translating the game. For example, 3, I believe, uses Celestial Union instead of the term elementals when referring to the MEA. But I will be using the MEA for future reference. And I will not be using Celestials for terms. I will be using elementals again. With that being said, let us begin with the Mayfield Incident. 2 years ago, before the events of Arcana Heart 1, the Mayfield Incident happened. The Mayfield Incident refers to the time when all of Britain clashed with the elemental world. The two worlds fused and then separated. When the elemental world separated, it took all of Britain with it. All except a girl named Saki Suzara, a Japanese girl who came to Britain through a transfer program, who became friends with the girl who was at the heart of the incident. That girl named Fiona Mayfield. Fiona Mayfield was the daughter of a highly prestigious family, but the only known victim of the incident, thus the name of the Mayfield Incident. Though the real purpose of naming is due to the person who named it. Mildred Avalon is the director of the Britain Ministry of Elementals. She was able to make contact with Fiona. Everyone who was a victim of the Mayfield Incident was turned into an elemental, losing all sense of their humanity, being, and physical form. The exception being Fiona Mayfield, who retained her human form and physical being, but she cannot age nor survive in the human world. Mildred was only able to communicate with Fiona from the elemental world fusion, so Mildred named the incident off of her. It makes sense in a way. Naming the incident after Saki wouldn't be as important as naming it after Mayfield, since she herself turned into an elemental. Saki just barely able to escape the incident. She technically wasn't fully involved, whereas Mayfield was. A question you may be asking yourself is, who or what is the Ministry of Elemental Affair? And what exactly do they do? Or have they done? The Ministry of Elemental Affairs is an organization tasked with dealing with supernatural problems, as well as appointing maidens. Maidens are girls with the ability to connect with elementals using their powers to enhance their own abilities. One of their most powerful agents is a woman known as Kamui Tokinomiya, a woman who has lived over 1,000 years protecting the world from various incidents. One such incident involved sealing a demon named Mike into a staff thanks to the help of Kamui and Yoriko. Kamui and the MEA are connected to two families who also helped them, that being the Koinumaru and the Kusuga family. The Mayfield Incident was such a big thing. It was something that never happened before, which made all of the MEA suspicious when the person who is in charge of Britain just so happened to fail their job, but also be a survivor of the Mayfield Incident. The MEA are suspicious of Mildred and have summoned Kamui again when a sky castle appeared in Japan. While the MEA are suspicious, they also don't have any experience with this type of phenomenon, so they still call upon the Britain MEA to help handle the situation. However, they aren't fully trusting, so again, they summon Kamui. This leads us to the events of Arcana Heart 1, where we're going to have some continuity things that I'm going to have to explain after a bit, but we'll get there when we get there. A sky castle has suddenly appeared above Japan. The MEA has sent both Kamui, the Kusuga family, and a young girl known as Heart Aino was assigned to investigate before something similar to the Mayfield Incident happened again. Saki Suzada has been isolating herself ever since the Mayfield Incident. Traumatized by the Mayfield Incident, upon seeing the sky castle again, she rushed towards it in fears of losing another friend. Kamui is reawakened from her slumber. Tasked with another mission, she goes to the sky castle with her partner Konoha. The most wanted criminal in the world is given a task by the Britain MEA director, Mildred, to capture Heart Aino and Dr. Mei-Lang Hao. Mei-Fang, a robot who was created by Dr. Mei-Lang Hao, goes looking for her upon finding out that she's gone missing. The young genius scientist Kira Daidoji finds out about the deeds of the Britain director of MEA and goes to find out what she's scheming for her own plans of world domination. Lilica, a demon who happened to be friends with Heart Aino, as well as many of her classmates, is looking for mischief and heads out into the city, into all the chaos brewing all over the town, with her friend Yoriko, who is trying to keep her out of danger. And finally, at the heart of it all, a lone girl defended the castle in the sky. That girl named Fiona Mayfield. For the context of this video, we will mostly be following a timeline of events that mostly follow Heart. This does not mean that we're only following Heart Story mode. Instead, we are following events that happen as well to Heart Aino. So this includes her encounter with Mamori, her encounter with Lazarette, and her encounter with Saki. As certain thing doesn't happen in her story that happened in their story. And we do know that in later games that most of these events did happen. Arcana Heart Story takes place over the course of 9 days. And because of that, I am having to make my own timeline of events as best as I can. So that way that we can have everything that happened, like all her encounters, have some sort of day set to them, as certain events do happen on a certain day. So with that being said, there are also some things that don't actually happen that I'm just going to say happened. Simply because it will make it flow more as a story rather than just, oh well, this happened, this happened, this happened. So without further ado, let's begin this story. On day 1, Heart has a fight with Mamori, as Mamori thinks it's too dangerous for her and Saki to be involved in this matter. But Heart needs to see why Saki is so depressed and what secret she is keeping. For all of day 2, she continued looking for Saki. On day 3, Heart has an encounter with Konoha, playing with her. Konoha, being a dog person, doesn't technically really like random people playing with her. So for all of day 4, she hides herself from Heart, who got distracted from her mission of searching for Saki to go play with Konoha again. While searching for Konoha, she runs into an angry Kamui, who's very angry about Heart messing with her friend. While fighting Kamui, she lets slip that Saki is more involved with the situation at hand than she initially thought. Realizing this, Heart rushed all over town to find Saki for the rest of day 4. Day 5. While searching for Saki, Heart sees what she thinks is a lost child. Not being able to ignore a lost child, Heart tries to help the child, but instead, it's the world's greatest criminal, Lazarette. The two fight and Heart is defeated and kidnapped by Lazarette, who brings her to Mildred. Lazarette is a bit troubled though. For the first time ever, she's been shown compassion, kindness by someone else. And she doesn't exactly know what to do with that feeling. She's never been treated with kindness or compassion in her life, always been treated with cruelness. So she kind of hopes that nothing bad happens to Heart. That is until she finds out Mildred's plan for her Heart. She plans to sacrifice Heart in order to become an elemental. Lazarette, seeing Mildred up to no good, releases Heart outside the castle and break their deal. Finally starting to see what it means to do good, she decides to fight Mildred. Unfortunately, Mildred is too strong for her. Heart comes back to on day 7 and finally encounters Saki. Heart and Saki are finally reunited after so long. However, Saki is rejectful of Heart, still not giving her any information or any leeway on what exactly happened to her in Britain. Heart tries her best to understand this and then goes back into the Sky Castle. However, this makes Saki rejects her again. She refuses to let her go into the Sky Castle because she knows it's dangerous. This gets Heart really mad, and the two end up fighting. Saki trying her best to protect Heart, while Heart is trying her best to make Saki bear her burdens to her. Despite everything, Saki ends up losing. And despite this, she still tries her best to go into the Sky Castle, saying this is something she has to do. Instead of trying to continue to try to drag the truth out of her, Heart instead takes Saki's troubles, with only the knowledge that she has that something has to be done with the Sky Castle. Heart leaves her friend as she enters the Sky Castle. As Heart enters the Sky Castle, there's a girl at the entrance. This girl with a 12-year-old appearance guards the castle. The young knight named Fiona Mayfield. Heart manages to beat her and move into the castle to see Mildred in the process of becoming an elemental. The two have a conversation where Heart tries her best to appeal to Mildred's humanity, only to find there's nothing left in Mildred besides her selfish romanticization of elementals. Upon finishing her transformation, Mildred believes herself to have become a god, made to lead humanity and elemental into a new future. Hence why she's trying her best to fuse the two worlds. Heart, having enough of Mildred's selfishness, beats Mildred, sending her and the Sky Castle back to the elemental world, thus saving the world. Now that the world has been saved, Heart and Saki go back to school just like normal with all their friends. But before that can even happen, Saki wishes to tell Heart about the Mayfield incident from her perspective. But Heart is actually okay with not knowing, as she understands that she overreacted. Still, Saki insists upon telling Heart about her experience through the Mayfield incident. After hearing the story from Saki's perspective, Heart realized that Saki was so desperate because she didn't want what happened to Fiona to happen to her. Heart assures Saki that she isn't going anywhere. After school, Heart meets with Lazarette one more time before Lazarette returned to Germany. Being chained to the love of newfound friends, Lazarette said goodbye to her friend, Heart Aino. That ends the story of Arcana Heart 1. The story of Arcana Heart 2 will be way later after this video, as it is a much bigger game and I need to translate it, as it never been released into the West. Stay tuned for that. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time, and hopefully we can do some more of this later. I plan on doing probably a few timeline videos, that way we can get some of the stuff ironed out in a way. Like, for example, I don't get to really talk about characters that I like. Like, one of my favorite characters in Arcana Heart is Lilica. And while she's not very impactful in the general story, I still wish to talk about her, if you get what I'm saying. And I rather just like make a timeline for certain characters anyway, so that way for the next game we have our bases covered a bit more. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.